Alright, so heading out of Cumbres Pass now. It's a lot of nervous excitement right now. We don't really know how it is up there. Weather is looking like it could be a little bit mixed. Don't want to get caught in a thunderstorm up high. So yeah, excited to see what is to come up here.
5 days of food. 68.2 miles. It might not sound like the most arduous trip imaginable. In fact, I think it's probably among one of the shorter stretches between towns on the CDT. But add to that, about 85% of the trail was under deep snow, and terrain completely different to the plains of New Mexico. We were going into the mountains, with all the features that came with that. When the trail did not ascend or descend, it most often followed a traverse on a steep, icy slope. So maybe you can understand why I felt anxious walking the trail out from Cumbres Pass. We had just left Ralph, who was going to hitch up to Wyoming and do part of the trail throughout the Great Basin, while he waited for the snow to melt. Me, Pace and Wildcard had formed a new trio to give an attempt to go through the first section from Cumbres Pass to Wolf Creek Pass and the town of Pagosa Springs. Because damn be it if I did not stay on my continuous footpath towards Canada. We stayed high on the windy ridge as we climbed up towards the first major high point at 3,715 meters, where the trail officially entered the South San Juan wilderness. The views were what you'd call panoramic, but the slushy soft snow across the following plateau made for hard work. It left us scraped up and exhausted. The first taste of snow was taking its toll on us. Eventually we descended towards the saddle, where we were lucky enough to find some water bubbling out of the ground. We set up our first camp near the completely snow-covered dipping lakes. We had hoped to find a nice open dry spot for our tent somewhere around here, but it seemed that the sun had not reached this far down. It was all covered in deep snow. Still, it had been a decent day, 15.1 miles despite a late start. A good part of the 68.2 miles of the section. The following morning we started climbing out of the little saddle where we'd camped, just as the first light came. Enough to walk without our headlamps. It was as good a start as any to a day in the mountains. Well, except for one little thing. Pace did a little throw up.
Yeah, I think I just decided not to drink enough water yesterday and not eat. Got a little altitude sickness, I guess. But luckily, my good friend Odin came through with some electrolytes. And after the granola bar, everything is good to go, and I think we're gonna make some good miles.
Yeah, the incident might have been just what he needed, because his spirit lifted quickly after the granola bar and electrolytes. We briefly talked about going back, but since he was already feeling better and none of us very much thought we could face the reality of returning to Cumbres Pass with our tail between our legs after just 15 miles, we decided to keep going. We were truly in it now. There was no turning back.
The snow is really starting to soften up now. It's 10:30. The postholing is starting. So this is where the struggle begins.
There was an eerie silence out there. No birds, no animals. The only other sign of life we came across was the fresh bear tracks cutting across perpendicular to our path.
I don't know if you can see them, but they are just fresh and old. Just went through.
After lunch, we got ready for our first big challenge, the 809 Traverse. The trail leaves Blue Lake, where we'd just been taking a break, and climbs up and over a narrow saddle overlooking the valley below. From there it turns out onto the side of the ridgeline and traverses up and over the tree line to a shelf. Finally, it exits down the ridge through a narrow gap skirting the surrounding cliffs before descending into the valley. Briefly, we had considered avoiding the traverse by cutting off a bit of trail and climbing straight up the ridge. But we had judged the red line doable, and we decided to stay on the trail and try the traverse. The snow was soft and unstable along the steep slope. We moved forward slowly, carefully, weighing every step to avoid losing our footing and tumbling down the incline. At one point, it even felt like we might trigger a wet snow avalanche. Conditions were far from ideal on this sun-exposed side of the ridge, where in the afternoon the snow was falling apart. In the end, it took us about an hour to cross the roughly 250-meter-long traverse. I don't actually think this traverse had to be as dramatic as it was, and I don't think it should even be considered one of the major obstacles of this section. But we started it far too late in the afternoon, tired and with snow conditions about as bad as they could get.
I had to be honest, down there at the traverse, I did not really feel comfortable. It was a bit scary. The snow was so bad and slushy, and I feel like if I had fallen in a bad place, I don't know if I would have been able to catch myself. So yeah, I don't know. That was not good. But yeah, it should be good now soon in camp.
Hey, I wasn't listening. I was stunned by all of us, the blind leading up the board. And as per usual, you were skipping and laughing eyes at the bedroom door.
We ended the day by dropping down off the trail to the valley floor. There we found a small opening in the snow where we could reach down to the stream and scoop up some of the running water. We pitched our tents on the few somewhat flat spots we could find. We lit a fire, a small attempt to try to rekindle some motivation after a long and tough day. The thought of facing tomorrow felt almost too much to bear in that moment. It was probably one of the most mentally draining days I've ever experienced on any trail. The following day we woke up even earlier than the previous to make most of that nice, crispy, walkable snow. We climbed up through the bottom of the valley until we passed the tree line, then gradually angled back towards the CDT and the small shelf that would lead us over into the next valley. The climb was slow but steady, step by step with the rising sun. At the top we paused to look back across the valley to the slope where we had descended the previous afternoon. It was here that I took one of my favorite photos from the entire trail. In it, you can almost see the snow melt beginning to carve its path down the mountain through the folds and gullies in the valley wall. Our footsteps are still visible too, as faint lines on the steep incline. This picture means a lot to me. It holds the memory of one of the toughest trials of my life, yet presents it now as a quiet moment of triumph. Standing at the top in the early morning light, looking back at what we made it through. After the traverse the day before, we tried not to think too much about what lay ahead, just take it one step at a time. But closing in quickly was a big traverse at mile 819. This was the one people had been talking about back in Chama. The earlier traverse at mile 809 hadn't really raised any alarms, at least not from what I'd heard. But this next one, it had definitely planted fear in people's minds, mine included. Just below mile 817, we climbed up through a gully towards an unnamed pass. Here, a semi-sketchy traverse started. Under normal conditions, it might not be worth mentioning, but below the trail, the mountainside drops off into a massive open void. A sheer cliff that plunges straight into the valley far below. Definitely not a place you want to lose your footing. Once you made it past that section, the trail crosses another unnamed pass and curves around to the other side of the mountain. That's where the infamous 819 traverse begins. It stretches about 500 meters with roughly 700 feet of full exposure. So you can probably imagine why it was considered the crux of the section. But I found a possible alternate while studying the maps. Instead of taking the exposed traverse, we could descend the stream bed of Haskell Rincon and connect directly back to the valley where we're aiming for. Then, following the bottom of the valley back up to the trail. A detour for sure, but one worth considering. We climbed up through the gully, now a graveyard of an old avalanche. It's always fascinating to see the devastation up close. The sheer force of it, young, strong trees snapped clean in half, tossed aside like twigs.
It's been a good day so far. We've done one big climb, one big descent, and now another big climb. Now we have kind of a, I don't know if it's a sketchy traverse, probably not, but we'll see. It seems kind of steep and there's like cliffs to the left, but should be good, I think. And then we are coming up on the sketchy one that everyone is talking about. And yeah, there seems to be some bad clouds over there coming. So we'll see how long we get good weather today. We might do an early day today, I think. Probably.
Yeah. Apart from the two upcoming traverses, we also had to contend with the clouds gathering behind us. So we pressed on with a sense of urgency. The first semi-sketchy slope was manageable, the steepness was reasonable, and the snow still firm enough to trust. And when we reached the next unnamed pass, we decided to take the Haskell Rincon bypass, our alternate to the 819 traverse. On the downhill, Pace even managed to squeeze in some self-arrest practice. It was quite a pleasant descent. First across the wide open slope, then down through the forest, following the snow-covered stream bed into the valley. All of it was easy going on the downhill. At the bottom, we turned left and started working our way up the valley, back towards the trail. The first stretch was a bit rough, traversing along the steep valley side, but after a while the terrain leveled out and walking became easier. We passed just below the big traverse. And while the video out here probably doesn't do it justice, the slope above us was plenty steep.
Yeah, that traverse does seem kind of steep. Well, we had a nice little valley stroll instead. Now we have another nice little valley stroll.
One more obstacle down, even if we kind of cheated it. But that's always part of the calculation out here, weighing the risk against the time or distance of a detour. There are a few key skills you need when heading into the snow on a thru-hike. First, the ability to move comfortably in snow, of course. Second is solid navigation, because you rarely see the actual trail in these sections. And third is the big one, handling steep snowy terrain, including using an ice axe. I felt pretty confident with the first two, but number 3, honestly, this is where I struggled. Even with some prior experience from the PCT, my self-arresting skills were not where I wanted them to be. So, when faced with the choice, I usually opted for the route around the steep traverses, if it meant reducing the risk. I'm sure the 819 traverse would have been absolutely fine in the end, but to be fair, I doubt it would have been much faster anyway. Previous day, the 809 traverse, which was half the length of this one, had taken us an hour to complete. This detour took us 2. But the day's list of challenges wasn't quite finished yet. Like I mentioned earlier, the weather had started to turn, and it was getting worse by the minute. In fact, the higher we climbed up the valley, the darker and more ominous the clouds became. We were climbing up towards the highest point of the trail so far. At 3,800 meters of elevation, the CDT clings to the mountainside for nearly 8 miles, traversing around Summit Peak, Montezuma Peak and Long Trek Mountain, fully exposed with no shelter in sight. We were left with a choice: stop early and fall behind schedule, or press on and risk getting caught in bad weather in a bad place.
I don't really like this. It's snowing a little bit, or snow/rain, but we're gonna camp high tonight. Not too fond of it. At least we're not having rain. It's kind of a mix of hail and snow, so that's good. And I don't think we have to bail down. The wind is a lot better again, so as long as that doesn't change, should be good. Yeah.
But the weather didn't get any better, and we soon had to consider our options. It was only 3 in the afternoon, but we were getting cold and worn out fast. For the first time since leaving Cumbres Pass, we actually found a dry patch to pitch our tents, and we were all pretty thrilled about it. Not having to camp directly on snow made a big difference, adding just enough warmth as the temperatures quickly dropped below freezing. And it turned out to be a good call, because soon the storm came back with full force. We spent the entire afternoon and evening hunkered down in our tents, hoping our little fortresses of plastic and carbon wouldn't tear apart and get swept over the mountaintops, like kites breaking free from their strings. Every time the calm returned, a little more snow had fallen, and the landscape had grown a little more beautiful, before the wind picked up again and we huddled inside our sleeping bags. It could have been a good time to rest, but our exposed campsite kept us on edge, never knowing what the next wave of storm would bring.
Wow, this is insane.
At long last, darkness settled over the mountains and we drifted off into an uneasy sleep. Sometime around 3 or 4, the wind finally died down. And when our alarms went off at 5, we woke to find our campsite completely transformed.
Your tent is covered in snow all the way around.
Felt almost absurd, walking around in our rain gear at 3,800 meters of elevation, deep in the remote wilderness of the San Juan Mountains. We had brought so little out there, and yet we were surprisingly comfortable. Sure, it got pretty damn cold at times, but as long as it wasn't a storm and we kept moving, it actually felt pretty nice. It's amazing how different everything feels with the sun shining. The storm from yesterday already felt like a distant memory. It wasn't long before we could shed our layers and let the sun warm our frozen core. It seemed like the San Juan had thrown everything it had against us, and we had made it through.
Oh, that's too fun.
Yeah, it was not bad.
Yeah.
We had reached the turning point, the sense that whatever still lay ahead of us, we'd be able to take it on. Right on cue, the next challenge showed up. As we rounded Montezuma Peak, the wind picked up again and the snow suddenly seemed to turn against us. Maybe the sun had warmed the crust just enough to destabilize the layers underneath, but either way, postholing season had officially begun. We broke out the sneak technique, desperately walking with the tread of a cartoon character, trying to avoid the exact pressure that sends one leg plunging into the icy abyss.
Oh gosh.
It rarely works, but you do it anyway, because hope dies last.
Today has been beautiful, but it's also been pretty annoying since there was a lot of new snow. Snow underneath didn't freeze, so we've been post-holding all day. But we're through the worst, I think. We're gonna go down to Elwood Pass now, I think, and from there the trail should start descending a little bit, so hopefully that will help a little bit. Oh man, it is beautiful out there. We finally began our descent towards Elwood Pass just as the next storm seemed to be rolling in. We were entering our final stretch towards Wolf Creek Pass. This section sat a bit lower and was tucked into the trees, but the terrain was far from easy. The divide here was steeper, with plenty of tricky traverses. At least the trees would offer a bit of comfort. If you fell, chances were you'd hit the trunk before tumbling hundreds of feet. Still, the maps with slope angle shading suggested that some of the upcoming traverses would be the steepest yet. On the morning of day 5, we woke up again to calm and sunny weather. By now it was becoming a pattern. Clear skies in the morning followed by clouds and snowfall in the afternoon. We slowly made our way through the steep traverses, and maybe we were getting used to it by now, because they didn't end up being much of an issue. We started to occasionally come across dry trail as well, but even that didn't speed things up. Deadfall was everywhere, making the easy parts barely faster than the snow-covered ones. It felt strange to realize it was the 2nd of June. Back home it would have been a proper summer's day. Green grass, blooming flowers and birdsong. Out here it felt more like Christmas.
It's you.
Our plan was to stop briefly at the ski patrol hut near the edge of Wolf Creek ski area, grab a bite, then continue down to the road and hitch into Pagosa Springs. But when we got there, it was kind of magical, just being indoors. We felt so perfectly comfortable that we kept procrastinating leaving. A roof, 4 walls, a table and some chairs. That was enough. It wasn't a difficult choice. We soon decided to stay the night in the shelter, saving a few bucks on Pagosa's overpriced hotels, and head into town the following morning for a nice breakfast.
Yeah, I have no food at all right now, so that's gonna be great. I think we'll just run down the mountain.
That's awesome. That'll work. I have super light pack. I love town days. I'll get a bigger job.
He said, I'm gonna buy this place and burn it down.
And just like that, 68.2 miles were behind us. It hadn't been the fastest stretch, but that didn't matter. I don't think I've ever been so glad to see asphalt. With high spirits, we walked the last little bit down the green ski slope of the Kelly Boys Trail. We were there. We had made it.
Nice, dude.
Made it.
Yes. Move too fast.
But as happy as I was, something was nagging at me. Finishing forced me to start thinking about the next section. Maybe even start believing it was possible. Possible enough that I might actually go for it. Something that, until that point, had seemed impossible. And that scared me. In that moment, there was just too much uncertainty. I didn't know if I had the strength to take on another one of these. I just wanted to stop and go back to New Mexico, where the gravel roads felt safe and familiar. My mind, cluttered by negativity, would somehow have to be turned around and reignited. 117 miles lay ahead of me. And having just done 68 in 5 days, yeah, you can probably do the maths yourself. But for this one day at least, we could enjoy being in town, being in safety. Tonight I would sleep in a real bed, and I would hold on to that victory for as long as I could.